we're not making any money until we're selling something. That's been our philosophy. It's old school and it just works.
Today's guest is Jim Stack, co-owner of HNW Marketing and a longtime independent sales rep. He breaks down how he's helped brands scale into multi-million-dollar Amazon success and shares his no-retainer, straight commission approach to winning in e-commerce.
So you can't be a great sales company without having great people. We've got 2 people on our staff that have been with us for 24 years on Amazon. You have to invest in infrastructure. Tim and I have spent probably close to $300,000 on software. That gives us a real advantage.
Somewhere along the line, you found Rep Hunter, or Rep Hunter found you. How did that happen?
We've had great success with Rep Hunter. We've got some awesome lines out of that. We've taken many lines into the millions of dollars from scratch.
Without giving away your secrets, what are some of the insights that would be generally helpful to others?
I think there's 3 things that I think of when I think of being a great sales rep.
Before we jump in, here's something that might be useful if you're looking to level up your rep business. I've created a detailed guide for independent reps that explains how to find quality principles, negotiate rep-friendly agreements, structure your portfolio, and manage your pipeline like a pro. It's based on years of conversation with reps just like you. You can download it free in the show notes. This is an episode of the Rep Intel podcast, Insights from Top Sales Reps. I am your host, Jeffrey Simon. Our focus, how to unleash your success as an independent sales rep. I am very excited to have as my guest on the show today, Jim Stack. Jim is a longtime independent sales representative and member of Rep Hunter. We will be sharing Jim's experience as a successful independent sales rep. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thanks, Jeff. Pleasure to be here.
Really glad to be able to put something like this together, to have a conversation, to do some sharing, get some insights into something that is valuable without giving away your secrets. What are some of the insights, that would be generally helpful to others? So what makes you a great sales rep?
I hope I'm a great sales rep, but I think there's 3 things when I think of being a great sales rep. First off, it's our people. So you can't be a great sales company without having great people. Our team has all been with us on Amazon, working on Amazon from 13 years to 25 years. We started in 1999. We've got 2 people on our staff that have been with us for 24 years on Amazon. Allie, for example, is my business partner's wife. She was the first one to ever create an A+ page on Amazon outside of Amazon. And back then there was no cut and paste. You had to learn HTML programming. So she learned HTML programming and created the first A+ page. Doing that, has been working on accounts and managing our team ever since. Jody and our teams have been with us 24 years. Jody is an expert in anything shipping, inventory. Sometimes companies will get into trouble with fines and fees. Some companies will get their accounts turned off. Jody is an expert at tracking those things down and taking care of issues. Casey and our team's another example. He runs our pay-per-click and our marketing. He's been doing that since 2008 when Amazon first started pay-per-click. It's important to have a great team behind you. I think the second thing is that you have to invest in infrastructure. As a company, Tim and I have spent probably close to $300,000 on software. That gives us a real advantage over the people who are just running their pay-per-clicks through Seller Central and Vendor Central. And again, Casey manages that. And then finally, I think something unique to us is we're on straight commission. So we're still old school. Back when I started this on Amazon, I had hair. No longer do. That was 25 years ago, but we are still running straight commission. Most companies are out there doing some kind of a retainer. And so a new company with a new product can get upside down very quickly because it takes a while for the pages to get created, to be put up on the site, to move up in search. And if it takes you 3 to 6 months to start selling, you're upside down that $2,000 to $5,000 already. We'll put in 30 to 50 hours for free before we even know whether the account's going to do well on Amazon, before we make $1. And our thing is, we show that in good faith that we've got an investment made, and that we hope that the company will be with us for a long time. And that's proven true. We've been burned a couple of times, but many, many times that it's been a good philosophy, has worked out for us.
Yeah, that sounds a little different because oftentimes a rep would not want to take the risk. Like you said, it could take 3 to 6 months. You're putting into it with no return, and you're not doing a retainer. And so you can get burned. But the idea here, it's like you're really saying you have to judge the company so that you can take the risk, the lead time to start generating sales.
And that's part of the discussion when we first get started with the company is, do you have the infrastructure? Have you created the content? Do you have the images? Do you have titles and bullet points and descriptions? Do you have a video? If not, how can we help you? We don't actually create that ourselves. We'll steer you. If you've got it created, we'll help you to do a title that Amazon's looking for. So if you have titles that don't conform to Amazon standards, we'll help you do that. But you've got to have a start. You've got to have a decent product, obviously. And every new manufacturer is, very optimistic about their product, but you have to have some of the other pieces in line in order for us to take you on. And if you're an existing company that needs help, that's changing, same thing, we would still be straight commission.
So that's kind of interesting because the obvious question is, what do you do if they don't measure up? Do you basically reject clients, or do you, in some cases, help them bridge the gap to get to the point of what we at Rep Hunter call rep ready? That's the term for us that means they're really ready to go to market. They're not, floundering around with, a great idea, but no ability to deliver. So do you help them bridge that gap, or
we
do you
do
turn people away?
We want to sit and we want to give everybody an opportunity if we think there's a good opportunity. And Amazon's very, very competitive. So we'll look at the site and we'll see what's up there. Do they have something unique? Do they have something that's already up there? If so, how are they going to be better? Are they going to be better by quality? Are they going to be better by price? Are they going to do something different than what's already up there? Because if you're coming in with the same product at the same price, and there's incumbents up there, and especially depending on the category, most categories up on Amazon are very, very competitive. If you've got the same product at the same price, then you're going to have to spend your way to get yourself on the first page. And that's not always the best idea. So you need to have something different, or something that's less expensive, or a better idea to be, to really optimize Amazon. If you're a company that's needing help that's already up there, then we'll sit and we'll talk about what hasn't worked so far, because companies should be growing on Amazon because Amazon's growing. Amazon's, an amazing platform if you know how to work it right.
Interesting. Now, from your background, in order to get to where you are today, you had to go through a career to get here. You didn't start out on day one and I'm on Amazon on day one. So how did you first get into even sales? Not even talking about the independent repping, but what was your career path in sales?
Yeah. Well, so my dad was a salesman, but he started us off when we were young. So when we were, I think, around 7 or 8, we would drive down to the Minnesota Gophers Stadium, and my dad would buy the Pioneer Press newspaper, which, there was no cell phones back then. There's no way of obtaining information. The Pioneer Press had the players from both teams and information on it. And he'd buy those papers for a nickel, and then he'd hand us 10 or 15 each, whatever we could carry. And we'd run out to the cars that were parking, and there were other people doing the same thing, and we'd sell that paper for 10 cents. And so we'd sell the ones we did
with the players, the paper with the player list and
with
everything.
the player list.
Yeah.
We're going out to the people, the fans who are parking. We'd stand on the street corners. We'd go out to the parking lots, and we'd be selling the papers. And whatever money we'd make, and it usually was between $1 and $1.50. That's what we got to spend on the inside of the game. My dad would buy our tickets. So that's how I got my start in sales. And then did things like find golf balls that were shot over this fence, and we'd wade into the golf course ponds, and we'd wade in and always bring a salt with us, a salt shaker, because we'd come out with leeches on us. And any of the bad ones we'd send back. Any of the good ones we would keep for ourselves, because back then there was no driving range. We had to bring our own balls to the driving range, shoot them out there, and shag them back. But the good ones that were over the fence, we'd sell those to the players. To the guys on the course, they love those. But my first job out of college, there was this thing called computers. And so my cousin had gotten in, and he was working for Burroughs Corporation. And he said, hey, why don't you look into computers? I'd gone to the Marine Corps, I'd gone to college. I took a vacation down to Phoenix and was waiting actually for a stockbroker's job up in Minneapolis. And while I was down there, I looked in the yellow pages, the Phoenix yellow pages, and there was this big ad. And it was Wang Computers, and Wang was a big name back then. I was actually talking to a Wang computer dealer. So I went down and met him. I didn't have a car. I got a ride, and he said, first month, $400, you learn it. You got to get a car. And then the next month you're on straight commission. So I took the $400. I bought a two-tone Chevy Nova. Didn't have air conditioning, didn't have power steering. And I was, after 30 days, off and running. So
this was in Phoenix.
This was in Phoenix, yeah.
No air conditioning. Okay.
No air conditioning. So this is this summer. So I drive to the first place, and it's an office building that's on Dunlap and Central Avenue. I had my territories, everything west of Central Avenue. Walk into the building, and I handed the receptionist, my business card, and I said, hi, I'm Jim Stack, Office Solution Company's here to sell Wang Computers. And she looks up and she goes, well, I can't let you upstairs because they have me so that salesman can't go up there. And she goes, just leave some business cards and some brochures and I'll pass them out. I did that, but not to be deterred. I walked down the building. I walked up the stairs, down the hall, came to the first guy, and I said, and he was probably a draftsman or an architect or something like that. And he looks up. I said, hi, I'm Jim Stack, Office Solution Company's here to sell Wang Computers. He looks at me and he goes, how in the hell did you get in here? And I said, and he goes, I'm calling security. So I was a Marine. I did a perfect about face, ran out of his office, ran down the hall, ran down the stairwell, hopped in my two-tone Chevy Nova, tried to get out of the parking lot, and I was trying to crank this car. I finally got out as the security guy is running down the stairwell after me, telling me to stop, and got out to the road, and just before he was coming up to me, and I went down a block, parked my car around the corner, thought to myself, man, there was nothing in college business courses that ever got me prepared for this. And I did that for 2.5 years, cold calling up and down the streets of Phoenix. I got a thick enough skin after the second year where I wasn't afraid to go into any place. When you first start out, you are. But the good thing is that I was able to use that job as a catapult to all my other jobs, because whenever anybody ever saw, hey, you're cold calling, and it's a lost art. Nobody ever does it anymore. But when they saw you cold call for 2.5 years and you're on straight commission, it's like, yeah, I want that guy.
Did you ever get a sale from any of those early days? You must have got some sales to keep you going.
I did. I got sales. There was one account that I went into. This was a little company far out in the middle of nowhere, little building. Went up to him and I said, "Hey, Jim Stack, selling Wang computers." He was standing on. There was a big vat that he had. I didn't think it was made out of steel or something like that. And he was on a ladder. And I said, he goes, "What are you selling?" I said, "Computers, personal computers." And he goes, "Well, we're looking for one." And he goes, do you want to know what I do?" And I said, "Sure." He goes, "Well, you see the gallon jugs?" And back then they were in all the stores and they were different brands, but they cost like 79 cents for a whole gallon. And it was basically water with sugar colored. And he goes, "That's where all these colored sugar water brands come from, is here." And I said, "Is there a secret recipe?" He goes, "Yeah, I just go up the ladder and I dip my finger in and I see if there's enough sugar in there." And he goes, "All there is sugar and there's coloring." He goes, "There's no fruit or juice or anything like that." Ended up selling that guy a Wang PC. And back then, a PC was 10 megabytes with the daisy wheel printer. And I believe it was for over $10,000. There's a two floppy system that was less, where you put the program in, like the word processing in the top floppy, and then your data would be in the second. I think that was around $5,000 or $6,000 with the printer. So it wasn't an easy sale, but I managed to eke out a living for both years until I moved on.
Yeah. So interesting, people get started in sales because they like working with people and getting paid for their success. How did you transition from like a success? You had a successful sales career. How did you transition? I mean, you probably went through lots of companies that you were just working for.
Yep.
Couple. But you eventually decided to go independent. So how did that work?
Yeah. So what happened was 1990. I'm working for Polaroid Corporation, and we were in the digital imaging division, Jeff. So we had the first handheld digital camera that was 1 megapixel. It looked like the stealth bomber, 3.5 pounds. It had a hard drive in it. So you took the picture and then you'd hear the spinning of the hard drive. It would take 15 seconds or so to advance. So you couldn't use it for sporting goods, but you could use it for other stuff. And then it would hook up via, I believe, a serial cable to your computer. So I was salesman of the year one year, and we were down in the Caribbean, and I believe it was at St. Martin's. And the CEO had his table right up front. And the CEO wanted me to sit with him because he wanted to know more about digital. He had come from Gillette and, the razors and the razor blade philosophy and all that. So my bosses had cued me on what to say. And we started talking, and he goes, "Tell me about digital, because I don't know anything about it. All I know is retail." And he goes, "By the way, before you start, look around the room." And there's probably 250 people from Polaroid in the room, all the top achievers and all. And he goes, "They are absolutely scared to death of you sitting next to me, because they are afraid that digital will replace the instant film." And I said to him, "It will." And I said, "It's just a matter of time." And what happened was, one of the Japanese camera companies bought a couple of our digital cameras and did some reverse technology and made it much better. And within 3 to 5 years after that, Polaroid started to go down. I saw the writing on the wall. So I had hired H&W Marketing to help me with my sales up in the Northwest. And I met my business partner, Tim. He was running the sales for H&W. And at the same time, Randy, the owner, wanted to get out. So we bought him out in 1996, and we've owned it ever since.
And that was going into a rep company, a rep firm?
Yeah, it's yeah, back then we call it rep firms. Today I think everybody calls them agencies, but Randy had owned the business since 1982. It was all technology products. Pretty much anything that you hang on to a network. He had some retail, but there wasn't a lot of retail up in the Northwest at the time until Amazon came along for us in 1999.
So basically, there's like two worlds. There's the inside, inside sales or working for a company, and then there's
Yeah.
independent, where you're basically having a company's outsourcing its sales function to an agency or an independent rep. And would you ever go back from being independent to working for a company?
Oh, wow. Great question. I'm too old. I loved working for companies, but I'm pretty far along at this point. So and I love doing what I'm doing. So I've got a great team of people, like I mentioned earlier, and I'll probably ride this wave until my retirement, whenever year that is.
Somewhere along the line, you found Rep Hunter, or Rep Hunter found you. How did that happen? How did you get connected with Rep Hunter?
I found you online, and I don't know exactly how or when. I think we talked about it yesterday that we were, early on in finding you. We've had great success with Rep Hunter. So we've got some awesome lines out of that. We've taken many lines into the millions of dollars from scratch, or somebody was transferring agencies or something like that. I believe we've got a couple of companies from Rep Hunter that we've grown into the $20 million plus. And there was a few years where half of our business was responsible from Rep Hunter. So it may not have been the actual vendors that we got from Rep Hunter, but it may have been from somebody that we met from Rep Hunter that moved to someplace else and then brought us on. So we're really happy with Rep Hunter, and the Monday morning sales leads and working with Brenda and all that.
That's great to hear. Would you say that, as kind of an extension of that same idea, that you took a company up to $20 million, that
Yep.
and that was great for you, but
Yep.
would you say in effect that was great for the company? It took them from nothing to something, or
100%.
so
100%.
so in effect, it's not only helping you, but it's building a business that they didn't previously have.
Absolutely. And from there, they could, we started them on Amazon, but from there, we moved to Walmart and to Target and to other accounts that they opened themselves up to, Kroger and all that. So, yeah, it's been good both ways. I don't think I don't think it's ever good to have it work just one way, whether it be for the rep or for the manufacturer. I think you want to grow together.
Don't even understand how that could work. I mean, if it's working on one side, it's working on for both sides.
Right.
Do you have any special repping stories or things that you might have that, may have to do with some of these customers that you mentioned?
Yeah. So in 1999, Tim and I have our business, and it's just us two, and we are repping anything that you can hang onto a computer network. So storage and firewalls and networking products and all. And we're mainly repping to dealers. And one of our buddies calls us, who is working for a company called Egghead. It was a software retail source. He said, "Hey, I'm one of the first buyers at Amazon. Come on over and have lunch with me, and I'll put up whatever products you have." So I call up Tim and I said, "Hey, this guy's over at Amazon." And all Amazon had done at that point was books and video. And so, Tim looks at me and he goes, "I don't think Amazon's ever going to sell anything." And I said, "Yeah, I don't think they will either, outside of books or video." But this guy's been good to us, so let's go flatter him. And we had lunch, and he had a few companies up, and lo and behold, we added 5, and they started to grow. So 6 months into it, he's got an admin assistant, and she said, "Hey, Jim, we're going to have lunch. I'm not loading your products anymore. You are." So we created a spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet was the precursor to the spreadsheet that everybody uses today to load products on Amazon. And I told that story to a bunch of Amazon folks not too long ago. And one of the guys looks at me, he goes, the sad thing about that is we're still using the same technology to load products on Amazon as we did back then. And I said, you know what? That's true. So about 6 months later, we get a company called Logitech, and we take Logitech to 15 million in the first year. And that was pretty unheard of. And so the powers to be, and we don't know exactly who they were, but decided to bring us over and give us an office at Amazon. And so our office was our room and desk was the same as everybody else had at the time, was a door on 2 sawhorses. We didn't have a chair, and they wanted us to work on Logitech with the buyer, but to also go out and to bring in other manufacturers. At that point in time, Amazon was all about SKUs. Bring in SKUs, bring in manufacturers. The profit part came a couple years later. So we had a ball, and we were single at the time, and everybody, all the new buyers, we were all young and had a blast hanging around at night. We had a golf tournament that we put on, and we would, one year, most of the buyers, the vendor managers at Amazon came to our Friday golf tournament and unloaded so many people from the buying group that they had to discontinue or disallow it the next year. But we had probably done that for 4 or 5 years. We also had Costco buyers there as well. But we had so much fun those first few years watching Amazon grow from the roots up and seeing, the growth since then is phenomenal.
That's really good. I'm sure there are lots of other stories like that with somebody with your level of experience and background that we could easily overshoot our time slot here with lots of stories like that. But one of the takeaways that I took note of as you were talking is you have kind of a secret that is a different way of handling the risk and assessing the risk. And you're not looking for the return, but you're really looking for what level of risk is it, because you're going to have to take that risk in order to get a new company going.
I think we kind of talked about that. That's the straight commission piece. So I think most companies wanted, they charge a retainer, and they can put on 30 companies, and at $3,000 a month, they've got a nice book of retainer, and it's not as important to sell product as it is maybe for us that, we're not making any money until we're selling something. And so that's been our philosophy. It's old school. We still adhered to it, and it's working for us. We've got companies that have been with us for 15. I think one's been with us for 18 years, and it just works.
Yeah, that's kind of a golden insight that can help people who are thinking, and they have a mindset that says, this is what you gotta, if a company is, if you're going to have to create the market and create the channel, that you can't take all that risk, and you have to charge the retainer in order for them to take the risk. But I mean, your outlook on that has been successful for you is really that's the common wisdom, but it's maybe not the only way to go. Right. Your track record is clearly showing that you've had an alternate approach, and it's definitely worked out for you.
We've surpassed several $1 billion in sales on Amazon and some of the others, mainly on Amazon. So it has. It's worked out, and we're happy with the results.
Well, Jim, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. And I
My
think we've
pleasure, Jeff.
pretty much covered the level of insights at a single podcast. So thank you. And you have a great rest of your day.
Okay, you too. Thank you very much.
If, we sometimes at Rep Hunter get customers will say, can you help me get an Amazon?
Yeah.
Would that be someone we could send your way?
Absolutely. We would be honored to have you guys do that. So
Actually, what we
please
got
do.
it got kind of the opposite just the other day. I don't remember the details, but it was the part I remember is they said, we're on Amazon and we're doing really well, but we can't get into Target. Can you help us get into Target? And it's kind of like the issue there. You can't just go with emails and back and, you have to have the personal interaction, the rep who's already got a relationship with Target. And so I just remember that was a case where they are in e-commerce. They're just not able to get into the channels they would like to get into.
So a lot of the e-com are the stepping stones to the stores. And that's the case with Walmart and Target. So we would get them onto Target Plus, Walmart in their select area. So Amazon's the litmus test for a lot of the other companies. They want to see success on Amazon. So, for example, with one of the areas on Walmart.com, if you're doing $5 million a year on Amazon, you're going to get into a better area of Walmart.com rather than the basic level that most people get into when they just sign themselves up on Walmart. So success on Amazon breeds success in other places like Costco, for example. If you go into the stores and talk to the buyers, they've already researched how you look and what they think you're doing on Amazon. So, but yes, we help with Walmart in their select area, which is a stepping stone to their stores, as well as Target Plus, which is a stepping stone to their stores as well. We've done business with Costco, for over 25 years.
Good additional insight. Really could help somebody who's trying to jump that gap. There is a path that they really need to do. You don't just shoot every direction.
Yeah, and a lot of Asian companies have come over and started doing business in the U.S., and they need help with getting into accounts. It's very competitive over in China. Be a manufacturer. There's a lot of, in every category, there's a lot of competition. So they're coming over. And in the last few years, we've been helping Chinese companies, make their way and better navigate the U.S. market.
Good stuff. It sounds like we're almost starting into a second level of the podcast, kind of like there's the first level of intel. And then now we're getting into the deeper stuff. It's good to know that there is another layer. It isn't just this superficial, ABC and you're done. It goes deeper.
That's a great point. So if you're just on Amazon US, for example, you're missing Amazon Canada, you're missing Amazon Mexico, you're missing possibility of Amazon Australia, Europe, Amazon's open the Middle East, Brazil. So there's a lot of opportunity within Amazon, for example, to expand beyond just the US. And in fact, Amazon will tell you that, Amazon Europe can be up to 80% of the sales for some vendors of the US. Amazon Canada is, generally speaking, about 8 to 10%. Every country is different. But if you add them all up, actually higher percentage-wise than what the US would be if you're on all those platforms.
Deal with those other international platforms as well. I could use for helping some of our other, from our principals on the other side that might be useful. Hey, you want to connect with Jim Stack and his company, whereas otherwise they might not make that connection. So good to know. I think probably we should wrap it at this point, let you go. I think we've covered a lot of great stuff. I wouldn't be surprised after the end of the time slot, some of this stuff gets into the main podcast. So
hope so.
Okay, great. I think this was a lot of fun. Enjoyable to you too.
100%, Jeff. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Have a good one. Bye now.
Okay.